I'm Rhonda Schur, your host of Unleashing LinkedIn on Society Bites Radio. I help entrepreneurs, business owners, service professionals get out of that LinkedIn witness protection program so they can book 2 to 10 appointments a week with their ideal prospects and referral partners using LinkedIn, potentially adding an additional $5,000 to over $100,000 effortlessly and automatically using LinkedIn. And today, I'm so excited because I get to welcome a guest who not only is a friend, but somebody that I've known for probably 15 years. And, John PYKE is known as the talent genius, and I think that name fits him probably better than anything else because he has more talent in his baby finger than most people have in their entire body. And he really is a genius. But let me just read the introduction, and then we'll jump in and have some fun. So some people call John PYKE the hiring and sales genius. Other people call him Mr. X-ray for his unmatched ability to look deep within or inside people and predict who will consistently be the top performers 97% of the time. John has helped assess, coach, and hire over 2 million people. Yes, 2 million. He's consistently quadruples his clients' hiring success rate to 80% or higher using a simple, proven, transferable, and sustainable system that never fails. He's a #1 international best-selling author, speaker, and consultant. His newest book, Hire Fast, Fire Fast, is going to be featured on over 200 media outlets, including Fox, CBS, NBC, ABC, Reuters, and MarketWatch. So, John, welcome. I'm so privileged to call you my friend, my colleague, and I'm so happy to have you here on this show.
Likewise, Rhonda. Thank you so much.
And today, I know we're going to talk about, one of the things that's happening, especially now during COVID, is, people are just really, really struggling with making the right decisions in hiring. So we're going to talk about how you eliminate the stress and mystery of consistently hiring top performers. And I know that you use science. You don't have a magic wand. So tell us a little bit about your background first, because I know it very well, but I know that our listeners would love to know because you do have the secret sauce. But, give us a little bit about your background because there aren't many people out there that are using science to get the kind of results that you're getting in the world of hiring.
Absolutely, be happy to. So I worked for the largest skills-based sales training company in the world. The name of the company was Xerox Learning Systems back in the 60s. And they were trusted by almost 85%, 427 of the Fortune 500, because they were the 800-pound gorilla, the least risk vendor, the one that was considered to be the best of the best. Well, I had the distinction of being the youngest person ever hired, and I was off to a very promising career when I sold more than anyone in the history of the company in my first year. I only stayed for 2 years, though, because I had a crisis of conscience. I found out something that was absolutely shocking. Something that I was not prepared for. After the training, the high performers continue to be high performers and the low performers continue to be low performers. And what I learned in my consulting is that at almost every company in the world, 20% of the salespeople consistently sell 80% of the total sales revenue. And not only that, not only do they do it consistently, they do it almost effortlessly, or it's a natural expression of who they are. So I resigned with that company. Even though I had a promising career, and I went on this quest to try to figure out why is it that some people consistently achieve all their performance objectives and the vast majority don't. And so it's been an interesting journey, but basically the reason and the secret sauce that you kind of mentioned as to why I'm able to generate the consistent unmatched results with all my clients is because I do rely on science. I rely on validated analytics that has 4 decades of track record behind it.
And I know that, from knowing you for so long, that you've had unparalleled success in the real estate industry where you primarily work with the top 1% of the realtors in the country, according to the Wall Street Journal?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. 50% of my clients are all in the RealTrends top 250. And, it's been an incredible ride over the last decade. I've spent a lot of time there. they have a 95% sales turnover in terms of real estate agents. And I've just had a tremendous impact on a lot of fine people that have brokerages.
Well, one of the stories that you've shared with me, John, is a lot of times because of the assessment that you use and your ability to actually read the assessment, it's almost like you find the diamonds, right, in all of the coal. And there was a particular individual, and I believe he was a pastor, who was looking to make a change. And tell us that story, because that to me really is the essence of why using a tool with the right person to interpret it can make the difference between whether, you might overlook a diamond and not even know it was there. Would you share that story with our listeners?
Sure, absolutely. So the situation was you've got a former pastor who only has a very, very limited amount of sales experience who interviewed well, but the owner shared he likely would have overlooked him and not even brought him in for an interview. But because we have such an advanced analytics, before we select someone to come in to interview with us, we know with up to about a 90% degree of accuracy if someone has a unique blend of the right personality, the right motivation, and most important of all, the right talent. The predictability is just off the chart. So in this case, from scratch, in a market that is only about, the average price per home is about $240,000, only 50,000 people in this town, he has sold over 120 million in his first 5 years of real estate. Now, to put this in perspective or context, because it's important to know, less than 5% of all realtors will do more than 5 million annually. So that would put it at 25 million. He has done 120 million in a small community. And, he's just one of the brightest and best salespeople, natural-born salespeople that you ever could meet.
And the broker that hired you probably never would have even considered this individual, but for the fact that you were able to interpret the assessment and say to him, you have a diamond here, take this to the next level. And, I think that that's part of why your business for so many years was basically word of mouth. I mean, I know we did a lot on LinkedIn, and I know you've done a lot of marketing, but for the most part, it was all by word of mouth because your results speak for themselves.
Yes, that's absolutely right.
So tell me, why is traditional sales training one of the first line items that senior executives typically, and appropriately cut in a downturn? And, what's the alternative? Because, we see that all the time, right?
Right. Well, if it worked, they would double and triple down, right? And, the problem is that they're just putting them in a classroom and exposing them all to the same content. Now, while it's true, there's no doubt that people are more successful that follow a linked sequential process, whether it's, professional selling skills or Miller Hyman or, whatever the program is that's out there. Sandler, there's a ton of them. But unless you have deep insight into your own style and are therefore, as a result, better able to match and to mirror the style of the people that you're talking to, the best salespeople do that innately. They don't even think about it. It just happens. And so what I'm able to do is I'm able to look deep within a person. Actually, the secret sauce is that the third profile that I use measures the hardwiring of the brain. And the guy that created it was going to win the Nobel Peace Prize by a landslide, but he died and you can't be deceased. It is an absolute breakthrough. Basically, it tells us how clearly their brain sees certain things, the neural pathways. And if the scores are really high, that translates them into being able to do exceptionally well. Now, let me give you an example going back to the pastor. The pastor's innate ability to connect and relate and develop trust and rapport quickly and easily, whether it's the janitor or a CEO or anywhere in between, scored in the top 0.1%. His ability to get results or to get things accomplished, not just to be a good starter, but to be someone that's a good finisher, was also in the top 0.1%. So you cannot teach talent. Talent is not transferable. And that's why you can only do so much. Let me give you another example, Rhonda. The largest furniture retailer in the world is here in my home state in North Carolina. And after 7 years of negative growth in one of the most severe recessions we've ever had in this country back in 2010, they decided that they needed some help because they had their revenue had been cut in half. 6 of their 7 competitors went out of business. Things were looking very dire. Well, what happened was I used this assessment with the existing staff. And the long story short is that in the first 30 days that they worked with me using this system and this proven approach, they had a 48% increase in sales. It was their highest sales in 4 years in a month. And they were featured on national television with CBS Evening News as the lead story, as a, shining example of what's possible. And the interesting thing is that retail furniture back in 2010 had hit the most severe and hardest downturn of any other retail segment compared to any other, industry or, retail aspect. So incredible things are possible when you use the assessment and help people to understand, more about who they are. And again, all this is based on research.
Well, now one of the things that I know about the assessment is that, a lot of people think, oh, it's DISC, it's the personality. But what you're talking about is that it goes far beneath that and shows some other things. So one of the things that I've learned from you, because we've known each other a very long time and you've shared a lot of your successes with me. But one of the things that I've learned from you is that you have the ability, and I just am amazed at this, when you give this assessment to a team of people, maybe it's a sales team, it could be in any industry, whether it's insurance or solar, it doesn't really make any difference. You can interpret that assessment to be able to tell the sales manager or the owner who might have one foot out the door. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because that's huge. It almost sounds like it's psychic, but we know it's science.
Yep, it's absolutely true. This is one of the most bamboozling aspects of this assessment, but it's absolutely works like it's incredible. It will tell you with a very high degree of probability if anybody on your team is a flight risk. And let me just give one example. Just in the last month, I had 2 of my clients who are broker owners in the real estate industry, and both of them, this is part of the reason why we were doing this exercise with their intact team, was to determine, if anybody is looking and, if we can prevent some costly turnover. And both of these individuals had flight risk scores on their assessment. And they came back to me and said, John, this is absolutely true. I've been working in this business for 20 years. I've been working pedal to the metal. I'm thinking about slowing down, thinking about doing something different. This is absolutely unbelievable. And so it's very, very, the return on investment on this is massive. It's typically higher than anything you could imagine. Let me just give you one quote or one statistic. The average tenure of a sales executive today is 14 months. And yet the time to get them up to full productivity is anywhere from 7 to about 11 months. So you really only have a salesperson for about 5 months of full productivity. And listen to this one. Less than 5% of the total sales population in this country will stay with the company for more than 3 years. The lack of continuity is absolutely causing companies millions and millions of dollars. So again, to your point, being able to have this type of insight into being able to put your finger on the pulse of where your staff is today, if they're a flight risk, is powerful.
So let me ask you a question, John. We know that there's a ton of assessments out there, right?
Right.
It's kind of like walking on a car lot. You could go buy a Ford, you could buy a Lexus, you could buy a Hyundai. There's so many to choose from. What is it about the particular assessment that you're working with? How does it work? How long does it take somebody to take it? And the other question is, and this is, really interesting because there's always going to be somebody out there that thinks they're smarter than the system, right? They're going to outsmart it. So can you talk a little bit about that? Because I'm sure the people that are listening are wondering and saying, maybe somebody's going to try